Well, good day, viewers. Today we have a 2008 Ford Fusion. It's in here for the right rear wheel bearing noisy. And this is not a hub and bearing assembly. This is a pressed-in bearing. The car is a little long in the tooth, so we're gonna try and change this wheel bearing without too much trouble. We'll see what happens. So remove the two 13mm bolts that hold the bracket parking brake assembly on, or the brake caliper assembly on, has the parking brake assembly in it, and tie it up to the brake line here. Next we're going to remove the rotor. We're going to hopefully we can tilt this knuckle out at the top here enough to get the CV shaft in. So use an impact screwdriver to take these T40 bolts out to hold the rotor on. Hit them a couple of times from the outside to break them loose. Now we'll get the socket for this axle nut here. So it's a 32mm nut to take that off, and I managed to tap the axle shaft inboard. It's not seized on the spine like the last Dodge truck I worked on. Next we're going to try and undo this upper knuckle bolt. So I supported the bottom of the control arm here. It's still attached with the shock, so it's limited as to how far it will go down. But that's the knuckle that's attached to the shock. And put this stand underneath it. Got the upper joint out, and it pivots out a bit. I'm going to let the suspension hang as far as it'll go, watching the ABS speed sensor wire, and see how far we can get. I got the axle shaft pushed in as far as it'll go. It's got to tilt out enough to get the axle out of the bearing so we can pull this flange out. Well, that's not going to work. The only way this is going to come out far enough is if this joint comes apart. And that means unloading this spring. See, it's got a busted stabilizer link here. That's minor. I was considering popping the inboard joint out and seeing if I could push it up above the diff and pull it out that way, but the furthest this will go in is basically flush with... Yeah, I think we're going to have to undo this. You're supposed to take the entire knuckle off, but I'm trying to avoid disassembling some of these suspension parts because they're so rusty. So I had to take this lower control arm bolt out and this tie rod bolt out. Fortunately it came out, and I was able to pull the axle assembly towards me enough to get the CV shaft out. Now you can hear the wheel bearing, how bad it is. So now we're going to get the hub tamer here to pull this flange out. Okay, so this is the setup to pull the flange out. I got a long bolt through the back, the washer on it. Hopefully it doesn't turn. Okay, well, there's the flange. I was afraid of that. Oh, the snap ring is on the outside here, so thank goodness. If you want to call it a snap ring, it's a rust ring now. Okay, so I'm going to use this air chisel to try to shock this snap ring. I do have a new snap ring. Where's the end of it? Right here. Wow, that's rusted in there. Sometimes I've had to drill from the outside here with a small drill bit so I can get a punch in there. I'm going to sharpen my punch. Well, it's coming. Just take the snap ring out. It's moving. Let's see if we can get a screwdriver underneath it. Well, I've got it turning in there finally. Thank goodness there's an ear. I'm going to try and grab it with a pair of pliers. I had it. There we go. Now we'll set it up to pull the bearing out. So I got the Astro tool in here. Wow, that's tight. I better have a look in the back here. I think I better put a smaller ring. It might be interfering with the housing. They're not usually that tight. This might be rubbing on the inside of the casting. I'll get a smaller one. Let's try take two. see if it's actually coming. And I have to get a backing wrench to keep it from spinning. Running out of air. Okay, we got some more air. You can see that how that pulled it out. The first adapter that I had was just a little bit too big and it was rubbing on the inside of the casting here. So now we need to clean this groove where the snap ring sits and the bore here to get ready to press the new bearing in. So I use a roll-off sanding disc to clean the groove. That's pretty good. Where the snap ring ended there. So there's a new bearing, an FW144. Doesn't matter which way this one goes in. So we're going to get some adapters now. We want to press on the outside brace of this bearing when we push it in. So I like to pull the bearing in by hand. That way I can feel if it's binding. Yeah. There's the end of it. My trouble light is dying. Okay. Next, the snap ring. Circ CIR 166. Seriously? Maybe the bearing is 166. I'll double check. These nice new snap-on pliers come in handy for this. That's a beautiful thing. Now we got to pull the flange off of the bearing race off the flange. I'll show you what we do there. Got another trouble light here. So here's one of the setups I use to pull the... Is it pulling it off? Looks like it. Pull the bearing race off. Sometimes I use the press itself. Oh, looks like it's not coming. Looks like it's pulling the sleeve off. So I might have to use the press. So I put a split flange on the bearing race and I'm putting it in the press. And hopefully it's going to come out. Yeah. Now some guys will heat that with a torch. Some guys will cut it with a zip cut blade and a chisel. I just like to press it off. I got to set this camera down. Okay, so I'm about to push the flange back in. Got a backer on the back. Okay, that's good. Now basically the rest is reverse of the disassembly. Put the axle shaft in, reposition the knuckle up into the bushings. So this is what I had on the inboard side. That's nice and quiet now. Let's try and get this knuckle. Okay, let's put the bushings back in. Now you need to tighten these bushing bolts with the wheel as close to at ride height as possible. So I got this stand underneath and I've let the car down so that the suspension is near where it would be sitting on the floor. These two bolts here, this bolt here and this bolt here, is 66 foot-pounds. The toe link bolt is 81 foot-pounds for some reason. The caliper bracket bolts are 52 foot-pounds, and these two nuts are 22 if you will torque them. What else? That's basically it. It's ready to put the wheel back on, and I have to clear the ABS fault codes that I generated by running it on the hoist. That should be it. Oh, I forgot. 189 foot-pounds for this nut. You have to have somebody hold the brakes on or put a bar in between the wheel studs while you torque it. 189 foot-pounds.